you are. That was
Hello.
quick. How's it going?
Very well, thanks.
Ah, so nice to meet you on the
Yes, you
Instagram
too.
Live. Um, yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for all these lovelies that are joining us. I
Thank
won't.
you for the invitation.
Oh my goodness, our honor. Um, for those who are joining, normally I'd like to wave, but I'm always afraid my phone is going to fall down, so I will not. And does it bother us that Hilma's artworks are asymmetrical? Oh, can't fix that.
Oh,
Okay. Oh, so good that you could be here. Um, yeah, this is what our third interview with one of our composers, piano music she writes project composers. So Beverly McKiver, and if you haven't seen the video yet, I recorded 5 movements, I think, from your suite of pieces called Canadian Floral Emblems, which is a suite of 13 pieces representing each of Canada's 10 provinces and 3 territories. So yeah, I couldn't record the whole thing, but I chose some of my favorites. So that's on our YouTube channel as of Wednesday, past Wednesday. So check that out and go to underneath that video is info on Beverly and links so you can purchase the score from her. Anyway, on to talking with you, Beverly, about all of all of your world as a composer. Maybe we could start by just finding out where you're from, a bit about your musical training and your influences and mentors and such.
okay. I was born in northwestern Ontario, in Kenora, and I
Ah,
grew up in Dryden, which is about an hour away from there, a couple of hours actually. Currently, I'm living in Ottawa on unceded Algonquin territory,
okay.
and I took piano lessons in Dryden.
Ah,
I started when I was about 8, and I continued until my teacher retired.
ah,
And but I didn't go on to any post-secondary, but I've always continued playing piano for my entire life.
wonderful. So, so you moved from Kenora to Dryden quite at an early age. Um, Mainly lived in Dryden for your youth.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah. Dryden is where I grew up,
yeah.
for sure.
I've I don't think I've been to Dryden. I've maybe spent one night in Kenora, on a family vacation driving from here, which is Sarnia, Ontario, all the way to Winnipeg. I think via Kenora, which is really
Yeah,
close to the border with Manitoba, isn't it?
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
So Dryden's about halfway between Winnipeg and Thunder Bay, so you do have to
ah,
go through it. It's on the Trans-Canada Highway.
okay, way up there. So hours and hours of driving. Cool. Yeah. So you kept the piano going, but you had other pursuits as well, or were you always making a living as a pianist or
No,
in
I
music somehow?
did a number of things non-music
Ah,
related,
yeah.
but I was playing piano for church and
Ah,
for choirs and sometimes accompanying for instrumentalists, but not in a professional way, just as a amateur.
yeah. Wow. Cool. And then at some point you began composing as well. Um, how did that become? How did that come about?
Well, I was a computer programmer for most of my
Oh
career,
wow. Okay.
and I got laid off in 2014. And at that point, I'd always been yearning to spend more time on music and perhaps take more training. So I decided at that point that I wasn't going to do computer programming anymore, and if I was going to do anything, this was the time that I was going to have a musical career. So I decided I would teach piano, and I went to University of Ottawa to take a certificate program in piano pedagogy. And so about the same time, I'd been taking lessons in jazz piano, and for a number of years. And I have to say, I'm not a wonderful jazz pianist by any means. It's just kind of a sideline.
I'm kind of jealous that you took those lessons, because
they've been very valuable for my composition.
Yeah, no doubt. And my secret ambition is, I always think, why did I become a classical? Not that I regret it, but I would love to be a jazz musician. Yeah. So, and to have that language at your fingertips, those are the true musicians. Yeah.
Expanded my view of music for sure.
Yeah.
So through that, I started going to a summer camp. It's basically a weekend for jazz musicians.
Okay.
Called JazzWorks. So I went to that for a number of years.
Where is that, Beverly?
Program. They hold it at the Canadian Amateur Music.
Oh, Camac. Yeah.
Yeah, Camac at Lake McDonald.
Okay.
So they rent the facility for a week, and
okay.
so it's been going on for a long time. Not always at Camac, but for a good 20 years or more, I think. So I went to that for quite a bit, and they would start out the camp with an optional time where you could go and just practice, or you could work on compositions, and they would have workshops. So I went one year just to practice independently, but I sat in on the composing workshop. So that's really where I got the bug to compose. I was sitting in one of those workshops, and the next year I decided to go as a composer and actually work on a composition. So that's where I wrote my first composition, and it got played in the main camp by the combo that I was in.
Okay.
So I had lots of encouragement and feedback, and then for several years after that, I kept bringing more compositions. I'd go to the camp again and get some feedback.
So that first iteration of you as composer was like kind of for a trio, or what? What kind of combo was? What kind of instrumentation was it?
When you go to the camp, they put you in combos according to what level you're at and according to best fit, I guess. So there's always lots of piano players. So sometimes there's every combo has a piano player. Sometimes they have two pianists.
Right.
But so I've been in various combos. So I could have there could be bass players, there could be flute players, there could be sax, vocalists, you name it. So
okay, so you were flexible and wrote for various.
Right, or we just arrange it as a combo. So come up with the lead sheet and the chart, and then we'd arrange it.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it's a lot of fun.
Oh, that's cool. So that's your start. So then, being in that setting, like everyone was kind of in the same boat in a way. Like you felt confident in sharing. Sounds like it was a very supportive kind of thing. I mean, I've said this before with my little bit of composing that I've done. One of the things I find is just, yikes. Okay, so it seemed like it really made sense when I was in the thick of it and making it, creating it. But now, do I really want other people to hear it? So that confidence, that was not an issue, I guess. That was just a very organic way of starting into it.
Well, at the camp, I certainly felt supported.
Yeah.
But I didn't really have a desire to share it more broadly.
Beyond that.
Until my daughter, who is also a musician, gave me a big poke and asked me if I would like to present my suite in Toronto because they'd been offered an opportunity to perform, but they in turn handed it over to me
Okay.
and said, "Here's your chance to perform your suite."
Right.
So I did that, and that was really exciting.
Yeah. And you were like, no worries about it. You felt confident because you'd already workshopped it, kind of.
Yeah. I had recorded it just to have a demo
Uh-huh.
of what it was at that point. So we've been through it, but yeah, I won't say that I was totally confident. I was terrified, obviously, but
Okay.
it was certainly lovely to perform it and hear it
Yeah.
performed and
Yeah.
and then get some response to it.
Yeah. Amazing. Can we just mention your daughter's name, Melody?
Melody McKiver,
Yeah.
who
So
is a violist
right.
and a composer as well.
Yeah. So look out for her, people. Yeah. So that's so interesting, that process, starting in those camps in the jazz. What's it called? Jazz Works.
Jazzworks.
So then that process of creating for those combos, how did that then evolve? Because obviously you've done a lot more since that beginning. How is your
Well, at the heart of it all, I'm still a classical musician.
mm-hmm.
So if I was writing a lead sheet, then I would just take that and develop it into more of a written composition.
Uh-huh. Did these pieces that I've worked on and the rest of the floral emblems, did they have a start like that, like thinking in terms of lead sheet, or
No.
how do you go about
Yeah.
coming up with that?
No. So the ones that I worked on at jazz camp, I made lead sheets for them, but I did have written compositions
Uh-huh.
for them. So the Canadian Floral Emblems suite were totally written out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And it was a totally separate project from anything that I've done.
yeah, and that was you got a Canada Council support for that?
Yes, the Digital Originals grant
Ah,
that Canada Council offered as their response to the pandemic.
okay.
So it was basically submit any project that can be shown online. So they were very open
Wow.
about. So there are all kinds of fantastic programs, not just in music, but in art and
Wow.
dance and theater and.
How cool. So maybe we'll go to that project then, that set of pieces, which I think are so beautiful. Canadian Floral Emblems. So how did you conceive of that? How did that come to you? And then lovely that you had the opportunity to actually be supported in creating it.
Well, it started with one piece, Lady Slipper, which I wrote after I went to the Purdon Conservation Area, which is close to Perth, which is a couple of hours from here.
Uh-huh.
And there are thousands of lady slippers that come into bloom sometime around the end of May, early June, I think.
Wow. I don't think I've ever seen them in Ontario.
It's absolutely amazing.
Wow.
So I went there and I was just so inspired. I went at the peak of the flowering season. They don't last very long, maybe a week or two. And I remember them growing up because you'd find the occasional one in the place where I lived, but they certainly weren't in masses the way that they are at the conservation area.
Okay.
But that I should explain that they don't. I don't think they grow often in masses, but they've been. They were nurtured by the original owner of the land.
I see.
So he actually made the environment hospitable for them.
Okay.
And then when he died, he bequeathed the land to the conservation area, and they've kept it ever since.
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
So
But it's
that was
otherwise,
my first.
that's a provincial flower of, not of Ontario.
It's the provincial flower of Prince Edward Island.
Okay.
So I had that piece, and then I was taking composition lessons with Philip Greenleaf, and we were working on a little. He had given me an assignment to do, and it was just take a tune that I had written, and we would harmonize it. So I had this little waltz that I called Trillium, because I've got trilliums growing in my yard, and I was waiting for them to bloom. So I had this little piece, and so that was two provincial flowers that I had. So Trillium is the provincial flower of Ontario.
Ontario, yeah.
So when this grant opportunity came up, I had a third piece as well. I had written a little song for my sister for one of her important birthdays. And so I thought, okay, well, I think I could use that for Manitoba.
Okay.
So I repurposed it and called it Prairie Crocus, and I rewrote it just for solo piano, because I'd originally written it for Melody and I to play together.
By the way, Melody has joined us. We had just mentioned you, Melody. So,
hi, Melody.
Hello.
So that meant I had three pieces that could potentially be part of the Canadian Floral Emblems suite. So then that's what I submitted as my proposal.
Right.
And I took it from there.
Okay. How cool. Yeah, I love that Trillium one. So beautiful. Yeah. That's the one I posted here on Instagram the other day. So you can also just find some of it there, just a fragment of it. So then you apply for this grant with those three. This is what I already have done, and this is my vision for the bigger picture. And then, how did the inspiration come from each of those? I feel like I see your Instagram, and it seems that you're very into like plant medicine in a way. Like it's very, very nature based. So I'm just wondering, like, if you, with each of these floral emblems, you actually kind of really connected with the energy of, was it about that, or how did the inspiration for each of them kind of come?
Some of them, of course, once I was planning to work on the suite anyway, but once I got the grant, the pressure was on, because then I had a deadline. But some of the plants I knew from my childhood, like fireweed and wild rose and purple violet, some of them are quite common across Canada, even if they're not the floral emblems, and they're familiar to a lot of people. So those I could handle pretty easily. But for some of the other ones that I wasn't familiar with at all, like Mountain Evans from Northwest Territories.
Yeah.
I haven't been to the Northwest Territories, and
don't see that every day.
Flower. So I did research for each flower and found out about their characteristics and looked at pictures. And in some cases where I just wasn't really getting anything, then I turned to friends who were from those provinces, and I asked, okay, well, tell me about this flower. What do you remember about it? And tell me about where you lived, and how did you get there? How did your family arrive or live in the province or territory?
Right.
So that's how I approached it. So I was trying to get inspiration from a number of different places.
Right. I noticed in your notes you do have kind of you invoke various friends or relatives, or it's really nicely written. You have really nice notes about each piece that kind of brings you even more into the intimacy of each piece. So that makes sense. So that you're saying sometimes you just have to phone a friend. What is this?
Yeah, phone a friend. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. It's like the whole set is so appealing, and it's like a little sonic, like flower remedies, like Bach flower remedies. But now you have sonic floral remedies. Yeah, they're each so sweet in their way. Do you have a favorite, or?
Oh my gosh.
You're not supposed to have favorites of your children,
It
but
changes.
yeah,
Yes. Well, while I was writing each one, that one would become my favorite for a little while, and
right,
then I'd have to let it go and move on to the next one.
right,
I think the ones that I enjoy playing the most are Fireweed,
yeah,
just because it's fun to play,
yeah.
and Wild Rose.
Mm.
Um, that's also a little bit of a challenge for me to play. Um,
Yeah. You
and
notice I didn't
oh,
record that one
oh
yet.
it's not that it's difficult. It's just I guess a little bit tricky.
Yeah,
You can go wrong very easily.
yeah.
And then the one from Nunavut, I think, is probably the one that I struggled with the most.
Which one is that again?
That's Opilak Tungwat,
Okay.
purple saxophage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a bigger.
Yeah, so that one I had to fight pretty hard. That was the last one that I wrote, and I was
Hmm.
getting very tired, and inspiration wasn't coming.
Oh,
And another case where I didn't know the flower, and I was kind of afraid of trying to write something for Nunavut and not really being able to experience that,
right.
and wanting to get it right, and so that I think that one's a particular favorite.
It's like Nunavut, for people who don't know the geography of Canada, like that's one of the territories that's way, way up there in the Arctic. And it's like the flowers there would really have to fight to live. So it's almost like that was part of the compositional process, blooming against all odds in a way. I mean, they do have summer, but yeah, they also have a lot of
Yep.
tundra and ice. So I'm always so interested. Like I said, I'm kind of wish I were a jazz musician, and so improvisation is so interesting to me. Love to do it in the language that I do it in. Nothing like a Keith Jarrett kind of type improvisation, but it is what it is. So, in your compositional process, well, do you improvise first of all, and then does it become part of the compositional process for you? How does that relate for you?
Definitely, I start with improvising.
Mm-hmm.
So just gathering together whatever ideas I've managed to acquire about what I want to write, and then just sitting with that. And I work at the piano since that's all I play. I'm a pianist, and I don't sing very well, so the piano is what I've got to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I tend to just sit down and try to portray whatever ideas that I've come up with, some kind of mood
Mm-hmm.
or rhythm, or
Do you,
doodle around until something sticks, I guess.
yeah. Do you get like a visual inspiration? I mean, flowers are very
I could.
colorful and beautiful.
I
And
have.
does it come
I
from
have
that?
used. I have used pictures to
Mm-hmm.
improvise with,
Yeah.
or maybe poetry.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, or maybe some of my own drawings, just kind of free form
Ah,
doodling.
cool. So you're an artist as well.
Or just no.
But you express in that way.
just out of necessity, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I'm always interested in that. So you've got an improvisation happening and you're like getting into it. And then it needs to transform into composition maybe. So how does that happen? Do you record the improvisation or do you write it down or you just keep jamming in it until it sticks, like you say, and becomes something?
Sometimes I record my improvisations and refer back to them later.
Yeah.
To see if there were any ideas that I liked.
Yeah.
Or if I come up with a motif or rhythm or something, then I'll record that in the software. So I use MuseScore to for the scripting.
Right.
So yeah, it's kind of a process. And then once I've got some ideas, then I just kind of go back and forth to the piano and between the computer and the piano.
Yeah.
And play and record, play and
yeah.
notate.
Do you have any like pencil and paper stage, or you go right to the computer?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes if I'm away from my equipment, or
right,
I might have a jot down some ideas.
Yeah.
And but no, I really don't work too much on paper.
Huh.
I find it a lot faster just to go straight into the computer.
Ah, okay. Interesting. Yeah, like not that my process is anything like a proper composer, but yeah, I always need to have the staff paper and a pencil on the piano, and just like really sketchy jottings. Otherwise, I'll just forget it. By the time I would get to a computer, I would forget it. Yeah. Cool. So, do you have other piano compositions that you've done?
I'm working on a suite for 2 pianos with a friend of mine, Deborah Grass, who's also a piano teacher and composer.
Okay.
And we're both writing pieces for that. So we've each written 3 or 4 pieces each.
Okay.
And then we also have one joint composition that we're working on that we're both contributing to.
How does that work? How do you jointly compose?
It's been a process. Well, basically, starting with a tune and then just each contributing musical ideas to it.
Okay.
But it's still a work in progress, but it's been fascinating.
Wow, fun. And so that's based on what's the idea behind that one?
The suite is basically about our shared history in Canada and ultimately reconciliation. So the backstory is that both of us were in college at the same time, taking the same program in the same place. And we casually knew each other, but we weren't really hanging out together. And we also we wound up working for the same company, but different divisions. So we still, kind of had parallel lives. And then, so we both had long careers in computing. And then around about the same time, we both left that and became piano teachers.
Like twins.
We actually met up at a piano teacher event at the Steinway Gallery in Ottawa.
Okay.
And I recognized her name, even though it's probably been about 30 years since I'd seen her. And so I approached her and asked if she was the person that I remembered, and turned out she was. And then, but Deborah is a descendant of United Empire Loyalists.
Okay.
And she'd done a lot of research on her family tree, and had done some. She had done a little bit of composing about these ideas, and had put together kind of a little documentary. And so she approached me if I might be interested in working with her on a joint project.
Wow.
About our shared history, from my point as an Indigenous person, and from her viewpoint as a United Empire Loyalist descendant.
Wow, that's so fascinating how those two strands are now being braided together. Yeah. Wow, I love it. That must be incredibly gratifying to work on.
It's been fun.
I'm not sure who this is. So who is saying, so admire your work. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, you can see that.
Thanks for coming, Louise.
And Louise, she says, I'm sorry I have to miss the rest, but you can watch it after the fact because it'll be both here on our Instagram and on our YouTube channel. So for posterity. So, so that's for two pianos. And once that's finished, will that be like you and Deborah will record it or perform it,
Yes,
or?
we're planning to
Yeah.
do that. Everything's kind of up in the air now because of the pandemic, but
Right. Indeed.
but that's ultimately the plan. We'll present it and or record it.
Yeah.
So that it can be shared.
Okay. Well, we look forward to that. Do you have a, like, who knows when that is, like you say, because everything is up in the air? Or do you have a projected deadline?
Sometime this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting close to. We're actively rehearsing.
Yeah.
And getting it ready to perform.
Okay,
We're
fantastic.
still putting like little finishing touches on some of the pieces, but they're essentially all composed and
Great.
ready to go.
So I never know whether I should call you Beverly or Bev, because I've always seen you as Beverly, but your Instagram handle is Bev. So, okay, to me you're a Beverly, so I'm gonna call you Beverly. So I noticed that you recently were in some sort of creative program in Banff. Can you talk about that? What was that program, and how was that for you, and what was happening there?
Oh, sure. I am part of I guess a collective. We don't call ourselves that, but in 2019 there was a group of Indigenous musicians and composers who met in Banff, and we used the time to workshop and discuss issues about Indigenous classical musicians and composers, and we presented a concert. So this gathering at the beginning of December was our second time to get together.
Oh, okay.
So we did more of the same. We workshopped each other's works and gave a concert, worked independently on our own material, and just had the opportunity to get together and reunite and catch up, and it was lovely.
Wow, that sounds so rewarding. And how many people are in that kind of group?
There were 10 in the first group, and then 2 weren't able to come this time. So there were 8 of us.
But you've made a commitment to continue doing that as often as you can. Wow. Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic.
So it's led by Chris Dirksen and Andrew Balfour and Jeremy Dutcher.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Jeremy Dutcher, that's such a moving thing that he does. Can't even put into words what it is that he creates, but it comes from deep in the earth and deep in the heritage, and wow. If there's anyone that doesn't know who's watching right now, Jeremy Dutcher, it's just like it sounds, right? Dutcher, Dutcher, I think. Look him up. Oh my gosh. So great. So what was your, you created something there, like your own composition, or was it kind of more of a collaborative piece that you worked on?
Yeah, we were doing a lot of stuff. So I'm working on a song cycle right now with a poet from Ottawa who I think is on this call. I think I saw her name, Wendy Duchesne.
Okay.
So we're working on a project. Her poem is about the Rideau River.
Okay.
So I spent some time in Banff working on those songs.
Okay. And is that with somebody's voice in mind?
Yes. Well, a particular voice type, but we've selected a singer and that we're going to be working with.
So much exciting creating happening there. So do you have any tips or strategies, or obviously you have wisdom to share with budding composers or composers who are well into it, but just could use a different perspective, or what sort of?
I'll try. So I consider myself, I haven't been doing this very long, and I don't have a lot of formal training, no formal training really, mostly informal and just getting together with people and taking opportunities where they come. So that would be my advice, just listen to a lot of music and try different things and meet people, find mentors, find teachers, make music with other musicians.
Very networky and social. That seems to be, I mean, that's where the original Jazzworks thing began. So that's a brilliant piece of advice. And you think, well, how do we do that in the pandemic? But isn't it interesting that we're even more connected to people, even though we're just in our little bubble at home? We, like, for example, here we are. You know, so it's just, I think one of the very exciting things to have come out of this very strange time is the connections we make more easily now, somehow.
Yeah.
Erica says, yes, social and listening to music is so important. Yes. I tend to listen to the music in my head more than I listen to music. So that's something I should deal with, but I'm always hearing something, kind of composing as I go, although it never comes out. So speaking of that, though, now that we're in this world where more and more we're noticing music of historical composers, especially, the women that composed in the past, we are starting to make some headway. We have a long way to go, but how does that feel to you as a woman who composes, that now we can sort of trace back a little bit more that, well, this is actually not a new thing. Women have composed for a very long time. We were led to believe otherwise, but how does that?
Well, I'm so excited about the work that's been done recently by people like you and Olivia Adams and the scholars who are bringing these composers to light. And it's not only exciting for me as a composer, but it's exciting for me as a pianist to seek out these works and have access to previously unrevealed repertoire,
Right.
and having it become available. So it's very exciting.
Yeah. And as a composer, does it also just feel somehow, does that make a difference to you?
Yes, well, for sure. I think it's always a case of seeing yourself or seeing the possibilities and removing barriers wherever possible.
Absolutely. And that's the case with, like you say, you have this collective now of Indigenous classical composers. And wow, that must just be, I mean, that's fairly new that you have that awareness of a collective of people.
Yeah.
That must.
Before we met, the first time that we met, we all expressed the feeling that we thought we were alone. We thought we were the only classical musicians who were Indigenous. And then we discovered, no, there's a whole bunch of us, and there's lots in the States, and there's and now there's more and more, because those associations are being made that we're meeting each other and we're making music together and we're recording, and so it's a very exciting time to be in. I'm
so moved by that. Do you also have an awareness of Indigenous composers beyond North America, New Zealand, Australia, the north of
I know
Scandinavia?
Yes, Me, not so much, but I know that Melody
Ah,
certainly has a lot of ties with musicians in New Zealand and Australia.
mm-hmm.
And yes, I'm aware of some of the and people like Shoshana Kish, and they're expanding networks
Yeah,
worldwide to Indigenous musicians, not just classical ones.
right. Okay,
Yeah, in all realms.
beautiful. So back to the historical composers, are there any in particular that you've kind of recently got awareness of, or that you feel a connection with in particular?
Oh, I see Melody's
Oh yeah,
made a
Eric
comment.
Avery in
Eric
Australia.
Avery. Yes.
Okay, noted. Thank you, Melody.
Well, back in the fall, I did a concert of all women composers.
Ah,
So I had
that sounds right up my alley.
I'm just drawing a blank now. Okay, Florence Price.
Ah, yeah.
Margaret Bonds.
Right.
Um,
And Florence Price
trying to think,
also.
Boulanger. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Lily Boulanger.
Yes,
Yeah.
Lily Boulanger. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And I didn't. I was working on a piece by Amy Beach, but I didn't put it on the program because it wasn't quite ready.
yeah.
But I do love Amy Beach and
Mm-hmm.
Florence Price. They are very
Yeah.
inspiring,
Yeah.
and all.
We mentioned before we got on this. You mentioned that Florence Price. You were surprised that she's actually got some Indigenous heritage as well. Is that the case? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's. Oh my gosh, her music. That we have access to that now. What a gift. I'm also thinking, like, with you and your very deep connection to nature, that's also probably reflected in the connection with Amy Beach, because I find a lot of her pieces are, I mean,
That's true.
those
Yes.
bird sounds that she can capture on the piano. It's miraculous. Incredible. Yeah. So I'm just going to ask you then to tell people again where we can find your scores, because we really want to support people buying your, like this set of pieces in particular, and anything else that you might have on offer. Links and where we can find out more about you. Yeah.
So the best starting point would be my website, which is beverlymckiver.com.
Okay.
And from there, I have the sheet music is actually being sold on Bandcamp.
Oh, good.
So that site is beverlymckiver.bandcamp.com, but
Right.
it's linked from my website, so you
can
get to it that way.
Awesome.
And also the recordings are there as well.
Ah,
and
great.
Now I just became available on Spotify and iTunes and all those other platforms, which I haven't even looked to see.
Yeah.
But you join and
Yeah.
you get put on all of them. So.
Right. Okay, good. So you're widely available. And just to be clear, the spelling, Beverly is EY, so Beverley, and McKiver has a K in it, so Mckiver. I found myself typing it without a K a few times. No, it's got a K. Yeah.
Happens a lot.
So, yeah, that's important. So, is there anything else that you just wanted to share about this whole Beverly McKiver, the composer topic?
Well, I just want to say how much I love your recordings of the 5 pieces.
Oh, sweet of you.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Sweet of you.
I'm really enjoying the entire series.
Piano music she wrote. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, we're definitely enjoying ourselves. Sometimes a little bit stressful trying to get something recorded again this week and again next week. And it's a lot, but yeah, we're so inspired by the discoveries. And yeah, hi, there's Holly. Yeah, so thank you again for agreeing to, first of all, be a part of Piano Music She Writes. And also, thank you so much for being with us here today. I don't know if anyone has any questions that they wanted to quickly type into the chat. But if you don't have a question here and now, I'm sure you can track Beverly down on her Instagram and her website and blah, 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 all those places.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, what a pleasure. It's such a treat to meet you. We've kind of had a bit of back and forth over the last couple of years, just by email or whatever. So amazing to actually meet you kind of by this little screen. And Erica says, thank you. All right. And that's Wendy. Is that the Wendy?
Wendy, yes, that's my
Beautiful.
collaborator.
Fantastic. Well, we look forward to hearing
Hi,
those
Wendy.
songs and that poetry. All right. So until next week, we are going to do another Instagram Live. And that one will be just Erica and me, not just. That one will be Erica Sipes and Sandra Mogensen. And we are going to talk about this whole process that we inflict upon ourselves every week, recording. So we'll talk about that process because, yeah, we each have our own way of doing things. And I just think it's a kind of an interesting thing and interesting mindset that is needed and all that we learn from doing so. And also just a reminder that these recently published anthologies are available for you to purchase for your elementary piano students from our website, pianomusicshewrote.com/anthologies. So
Definitely going to check those out.
Yeah, I'm really happy with how they turned out and very excited about getting that music in the hands of the younger hands, the elementary hands, because wow, what a difference that would have been made, I think, as a young girl learning piano back in the day. Anyway, all the best to you, Beverly, and thanks everyone for coming and listening. And until next time, take care.
Thank you so much, Sandra.
Okay.
Bye.
Ciao.